Billions of packages just like these roll off a factory line, engineered in a lab, not a kitchen. They're designed to hijack your brain, your hunger signals, your willpower. And most people eating them right now have no idea. Linked to obesity, cancer, depression, addiction. Well, the science is in. I'm Dr. Charles, and today we expose all of it. Hope you're ready.
Why do we eat stuff that isn't food, and why can't we stop? Let's go to the first slide. So, what is ultra processed food? Okay, so the official definition is formulations of ingredients, mostly of exclusive industrial use, made by a series of industrial processes, many of which require sophisticated equipment. So in plain English, if it came from a factory and has ingredients you don't recognize, it's probably ultra processed food. And we have examples here. We have crisps, diet sodas, flavored yogurts, chicken nuggets, breakfast cereals, protein bars, sliced breads, pretty much everything that is made in most supermarkets and it's mass marketed is, it's been put through a lot of processes. There's a lot of ingredients. There's lots of methods that is used to make it, some of which may shock you if you were to see it. Normally foods that aren't ultra processed, things that you would think of, have like one ingredient. Let's say things like chicken breast, lean beef, vegetables like an apple or lettuce, like where they're just the ingredients. Those are more commonly known as foods that are not ultra processed. But even today they still have some form of like processing in the form of, let's say, vegetables or fruits being covered with like pesticides and things like that, or like some form of chicken. I know especially in like US chicken or US beef, they may like give artificial like hormones and things like that to these chickens or beef to make them bigger, or even just inflate them with water so they look bigger when they're inside. They're like packaging to sell them as like having a higher weight. There's loads of ways that this comes down into, and in the bottom over here near the source you can see where I am getting this information from. So this is a study, if you wanted to reference where the information comes from. The nervous system. So there's 4 groups and only one will kill you slowly. So nervous system is here. So foods on the left hand side are more whole foods, and foods on the right hand side, they're engineered for overconsumption. I think that's the key process and the key reason, and I guess like why this video even exists, why this book even exists, is what is the point of ultra processed food? It's engineered so your body wants more of it, so you buy more of it, so the companies can make more money. Things like crisps, diet drinks, chicken nuggets, cereal, you eat them, they often have high calories, especially in like the US. Over here we are a lot more regulated, but they often have a lot more calories. So the more you eat, the more you want. It doesn't fill you, it doesn't satiate you. Okay, so the first one, so we have Nova 1, which is like minimally processed foods, and move on to Nova 2, which is processed ingredients. Nova 3 is processed foods again, and number 4 is ultra processed foods. Okay, and we see all the way on the left hand side we have apples, eggs, nuts, milk. Move it into ingredients that are processed, like butter, flour, sugar, salt, oil. There's still a way to have these processed ingredients be healthier in the form of like butter or like flour. You can make this naturally in like your home to some extent, but of course you need a lot more equipment. But the store bought ones, especially like the store versions, like if it's not some form of like organic version, which is often a lot more expensive, if it's a store made version, is often going to be ultra processed as well. Processed foods, things like cheese, tinned fish, cured meat, things that you can like leave, like canned food, let's say, that you can leave in like your cupboard for months and survive the apocalypse. That is processed foods. Ultra processed foods is things that we know and love, unfortunately, and there's the source at the bottom. The numbers are insane. So 57% of people, of UK adults, their calories come from ultra processed foods. So over half of the food that people eat in the UK, they are getting their food from things that, let's say, did not even exist 100 years ago. Then 65% of UK children's calories come from ultra processed food. And of course, we've all been kids before, especially if you're a kid, between, let's say, 1990s upwards, you'd see that like a lot of the snacks, a lot of the commercials, a lot of the TV programs were aimed at marketing ultra processed foods, crisps, chocolate, candy bars, sweets, and it's even more in the US because, of course, there's a lot less regulations. I've seen somewhere before, like a packet of M&Ms in the UK versus the US. There's a lot more ingredients in the US version of like M&Ms, even though it's the same product. It's chocolate M&Ms. So of course, we all know the US have a lot less like stringent, laws in regards to the ingredients and the things that they're allowed in their food. There's no sort of like sugar tax the way it is over here, but it's still something to be aware of. British children have the highest EPF consumption in Europe, so of course we're doing better than the US, but in the grand scheme of things, compared to other European countries, especially places like Spain, France, where they eat a lot more lean, or like Greece, where they eat like the Mediterranean diet, a lot more vegetables, lean meats. We're eating a lot more, and kids are eating a lot more. So the man who stopped it first, so Carlos Monteiro, he's a Brazilian epidemiologist in the University of Sao Paulo. In 2009, Monteiro noticed something strange. Brazil was getting richer, people were buying more sugar, oil, and salt than ever before, but actually the purchases of sugar, oil, and salt were falling. Okay, so where was the extra coming from? Inside products hidden inside ultra processed food. Okay, so breaking this down, it's saying the problem was not the foods or drinks themselves, but what was done to them. Okay, so there is a lot of things that we can go down a massive like rabbit hole into ultra processed foods and why it was made and all of this, but the main thing is it was made by someone. Luckily it was discovered way back when here in 09. I'm sure maybe someone must have seen this earlier, because I know especially in some parts of the world, like where I come from in like Nigeria, even back in 09, and even like right now, if I was to go back and see like a lot of family, cousins, uncles, aunties, they do not eat the way people in the Western world eat. Is a lot more foods that they've made, a lot more like natural foods that they've grown in like farms, etc. So this whole thing is just surprising. So there was this study, I think this was one of the key things I really liked from this book. A doctor ate ultra processed food for a month, and it was actually the author of this book. So he ate 80% ultra processed food for 4 weeks, and here's what happened. He gained 6.5 kg. He developed fatty liver in 4 weeks. He automatically just consumed 500 calories a day, and he had depressive symptoms which were seen within 2 weeks. So for him, the extra calories weren't a choice. His appetite regulation system had broken down, and of course this is what the food is made to do. It's not made to satisfy you, it's made to encourage you or to stimulate your body to eat more of it. And of course it's like, let's say things like, I love Doritos. A pack of Doritos, like a massive big pack, not the small, a proper big bag, is like 1300 calories. I could eat the whole bag and still feel hungry after, because that's what it's made to do. It's made to taste amazing. Once you eat it and once you have some of it and it's like broken down and it goes into like your stomach, if it like most crisps, it turns into some form of like starchy substance that is very, very tiny, but it stimulates your brain to think that you're eating some form of meal. But then once it hits your stomach, your body's like, the meal hasn't come yet, so you're more hungry after. Ghrelin is like stimulated, it makes you more hungry, so you eat more. You look to maybe overconsume on other forms of ultra processed foods, unless you can maybe like have the willpower to stop it and realize what's going on and eat some more lean foods. But it's difficult, it's hard, especially if you don't have access to this information. So your brain is being hacked. Okay, so the bliss point. So food scientists calculates the precise combination of sugar, salt, and fat that maximizes pleasure. The bliss point, where you can't stop eating. All of this is engineered. It's not that you have a low amount of willpower, or you've like, this is 100% your fault. There is a team of intelligent scientists that are working hard to make sure that when you eat this food, when you try ultra processed food, you don't want to stop. You want to continue having more and more and more. This concept was pioneered by Howard Moskowitz and later confirmed by MRI studies showing ultra processed food activates the same dopamine reward circuits as cocaine. Okay, so these products are designed to be eaten without stopping, and this was just a quote from the author. Okay, so when you're trying to have the willpower to to stop having these meals, it's not 100% your fault, because there's a team of scientists, evil scientists like this picture there, and they're behind the scenes trying to, I guess, engineer your brain to continue to overconsume on their products. The ingredients have a hall of shame. Here is a lot of ingredients that some of you may know, some of you may not know. So we have the first one, I'm not even going to mention it, but it's this one over here. It's an industrial gel that disrupts gut bacteria. And we have this one over here, TBHQ, which is a preservative linked to immune dysfunction in animal studies. This one here, which is a 0-calorie sweetener which still spikes insulin. Sodium nitrate, which is cured meat preservatives classified as a group 2A carcinogen, so probably causes cancer. This one here is a seaweed thickener that it triggers gut inflammation. Emulsifier, it thins your gut's protective mucus layer. So now each of these ingredients are ingredients that you would see in different types of ultra processed food. I think this would be like the most common one. A sweetener. I think like there's a lot of sweeteners. There's aspartame, which is the one that I know is most common and is used in a lot of like low calorie, high protein foods. I know because I'm guilty of over consuming as well on aspartame. Sweetener is just a nice substitute for sugar. I still think you should use it just in smaller quantities. Even as I'm speaking about it, I have some sweetener here, but this is sucralose. So I just add this into my coffee and then go from there. But yeah, there's loads of these ingredients. And they all have their own role in either preserving the food that you're eating, or making it taste sweeter, or just making it last for an obscene amount of time. Normal organic food is meant to expire quickly, within 2 to 3 days. Foods that last for months are obviously ultra processed, and of course there's a lot of negative effects. A lot of these ones, like let's say like immune dysfunction, damage to your guts, protective mucus layer, gut inflammation. It may also be a reason as to why there is such an increase in like people that being diagnosed with some forms of like IBS or IBD, which are just like inflammatory bowel syndromes, or they have some form of like diarrhea and things like that. Because your gut microbiome definitely plays a role in just how you feel and how your body is able to absorb all of the nutrients that you eat, like if there is nutrients to absorb. And it's something that I could even make a whole video going into this later. Let me know if you'd like this down below. So emulsifiers are wrecking your guts. So we have a randomized controlled trial from 2022. So participants who consumed carboxymethyl cellulose. Let's go back to see what that one was for, which is an industrial gel that disrupts gut bacteria. They experienced altered intestinal microbiota, reduced microbial diversity, increased pro-inflammatory bacteria, and intestinal discomfort. And there is the link to the study down there below. So this is just breaking down into one of the key things that we've looked at moving forward. So the diet food trap. Now I am I am one of their key customers. I am a person that has definitely fallen and is currently in this trap of eating diets, low calorie, high protein, low fat food. You see these commercials absolutely everywhere. But of course they're not completely horrible, but of course they still have their side effects. We have artificial sweeteners here, which they still spike insulin. They still drive cravings. They're associated with an altered gut microbiome. A 2022 Cell study found that they disrupt the glycemic response. Okay, so you have these sweeteners. It's not sugar, so when you have it, like the glucose doesn't actually enter like your bloodstream because there is no glucose. They're artificial, but your body still recognizes it as if you've actually had sugar, and it's expecting glucose. So insulin is spiked. It makes you more hungry, which makes you crave more of what you're eating. It just makes you crave more food in general. I think it's good in the process of trying to reduce the amount of sugar you have, maybe to have this in your coffee, or to have this in other things where you'd have sugar. And as long as you're having it with something, like let's say with coffee, let's say for me, even though it may have a slight spike in like insulin, at least I'm having something substantial, like a cup of coffee. So my body is still gonna it will still experience being full, which also helps with satiety. So I don't know. I can go to a video to dive into this a bit more as well. But anyway, we have a low-fat food. So fat was removed and replaced with sugar, starch, and emulsifiers. The low-fat era correlated with the obesity explosion. Okay, protein bars. They typically have 30 plus ingredients. Again, I have a box of protein bars. I still like it because I don't believe, again, I can make a video on this. I can make so much videos off of this, but I don't believe that we can fully achieve not having ultra processed food. If that's something that you want to do, then go for it, but I still think we still need to allow a bit of grace and have some form of enjoyment in your life, which may be a chocolate bar which is also processed, or going to McDonald's, or go to Domino's, which is also processed. For me, I like protein bars. I feel like they're a nice way for me to have a light snack during the day. They give me a bit of protein, not too high in calories. I'm still going to keep having that. So you just need to be aware of this and not like completely change how you live, but just for you to be aware of what the foods are, what you're putting inside your body, what they contain. Healthy cereals. So a lot of these cereals as well, they have a lot of high fiber claims. Recently I've been seeing a lot of cereals that have a lot of protein. Well, not a lot of protein, but they're marketed as like having protein. Always look at the nutritional label at the back to see if they have a substantial amount of protein, because oftentimes you'll find it'll be 2 grams of protein per 30 grams for like a normal box of cereal. Then on the protein cereal, it's 4 grams of protein. But it's like, instead of being £2, it's now £4.50 for the protein cereal. So just be aware of this, because a lot of these marketing schemes and hacks, if you read the label, which you see most people won't read, you see that it's all smoke and mirrors and it's not actually anything substantial. UPF and obesity is not your fault. So a landmark study was done in 2019. Participants were offered ultra processed food diet. They ate 500 more calories per day when offered unprocessed food automatically. They weren't told to eat more, they just did. They gained 2 pounds in 2 weeks on ultra processed food versus losing 2 pounds on unprocessed food. And why is this the case? Because ultra processed food disrupts the satiety signaling system. Okay, so what this means is like you're faster to eat, so your gut hormones don't have time to signal fullness. Low in fiber, so your gut bacteria doesn't produce the satiety signals, which just means that your body doesn't let your brain know that it's full, so you're still hungry. Calorie dense but low volume, so your stomach doesn't stretch enough, which is what I mentioned about coffee before, or like having like liquids to help you feel more full. If your body stretches, it sends a signal to your brain that your stomach is full and you should not eat so much. So ghrelin comes down, which is your hunger hormone, and leptin goes higher, which is your satiety or like belly full hormone. Engineered flavors override natural stop eating signals. So again, this just goes back to these smart scientists are creating foods and flavors and mixtures that hits different receptors on your body, and they tell you to continue to keep eating even when your body knows it's full. So just something to be aware of, and also it just shows how eating more of these foods, it just makes you add more calories, just because there's so much stuff inside of them, and because of the increased response of you wanting to have more food after, because you aren't full, and also because it's telling like your brain that you aren't full. All of these factors play a role in you just eating more, and it's very easy to see how this can lead to people over consuming over a period of time, gaining more weight than what they even wanted, even though they may think they're eating exactly the same, but automatically they're eating above their maintenance. 500 calories a day over a week, that's 3,500 calories, which is 1 pound of fat a week. Over a year, that's like 52 pounds of fat just from nothing. So it's something that you need to be aware of. Ultra processed food and cancer, the data. So there's a 29% higher colorectal cancer risk. With men it's highest, because with men it's higher because obviously men have a higher ultra processed food consumption, and there's a 2% overall cancer risk per 10% increase in UPF consumption. So these are dose response relationships. The more UPF, the higher the risk. The more ultra processed foods we eat, the less foods that we're eating that have like, let's say, single ingredients. Like, let's say if you have your dinner, you're having some chicken, you're having some form of carbs like potatoes, you're having some vegetables, maybe for like desserts you'd have some Greek yogurt, fruits, some honey. Even though the Greek yogurt, the honey may be like Nova 1 or like Nova 2 in terms of how ultra processed they are. The honey may be a bit ultra processed. The Greek yogurts could be a bit ultra processed, maybe Nova 2, Nova 3. but it's still a lot better than having a meal where all of the food that you're eating is like, let's say like you go to Iceland and you buy some pizza pockets, and it's like that is Nova 4, that is ultra processed. And I'm saying pizza pockets because I recently went to Iceland and I bought pizza pockets. Again, it's all about having balance. I'm going to have it at some point as like a sort of like a cheat meal, cheat diet. But again, this video isn't meant to shame any of you, to make you think that, you know, this is something that you need to change, or something that you need to be afraid of. It's just something that you need to be aware of. And again, if you want to go read this book, Ultra Processed People, this video will hopefully just give a nice breakdown into the key points that you need to get from this book. If you want to read it yourself, go and read it. It's very entertaining and it's easy to understand as well. I just have all of these like figures and stats and studies for the academics watching the video. So these are the mechanisms are multifactorial. Okay, so emulsifiers disrupting your gut barrier, bacterial translocation, which results in inflammation, nitrites in processed meats forming N-nitrosamines, artificial sweeteners, altering microbiome diversity. Okay, basically all this gibberish is saying ultra processed food is not having a good effect on your body, especially if a large amount of your diet is ultra processed food. We've seen the stats already for a lot of people in the UK and the US, especially with children. Over half of their diet is ultra processed food. So this is why like these numbers, these stats, they add a lot more. They mean a lot more, because a lot of our diet is ultra processed. If we could even maybe half the amount of food that we eat that's ultra processed, let's say like 60% of your diet, like what they're saying, is ultra processed. If you half that to like 30%, then we could, you know, reasonably suggest that you would see maybe a half a 50% drop in the risks of these forms of cancers, and the risks of like gut and bile inflammation. You know, we could see these drops as well. So because obviously we have a dose response relationship. So these are just things that we need to look into. UPF in your brain. A review of 45 meta-analysis shows that nearly 10 million study participants, so from these people, 48% have a higher risk of anxiety, 20% have a higher risk of depression, 50% have a higher risk of cardiovascular death, and 21% have a higher risk of premature death. So 90% of serotonin is made in the gut. A damaged gut is equal to a damaged brain. Okay, so not only is it affecting your body, it's affecting your ability to lose weight or to maintain your weight, but it also has a risk on your brain as well. The author mentioned that when he did the 4-week study where he was eating mainly 80% ultra processed food, he had symptoms of depression within 2 weeks. And what are the symptoms of depression? It's things like low mood, low energy, not enjoying things that you normally enjoy, early morning awakening, going to sleep late, maybe eating more, eating a lot less, being less socially like active, maybe like you're spending a lot more time at home. These were the symptoms that he was developing over that period within 2 weeks of just eating an 80% ultra processed food diet. And of course 80%, again, it's higher than what the standard that like most people in the UK eat from like the previous studies. It's closer to like maybe 50 to 60%, but still it's not that much higher. So maybe if you aren't seeing those symptoms within 4 weeks, maybe you see them in like 8 weeks, like it's still surprising, it's still shocking, especially with all of these other risks that we have: high risk of anxiety, depression, CVD, cardiovascular risk, and higher risk of premature death. Is something that we need to take into account. Are you actually addicted? So 40% of adults meet the clinical criteria for UPF addiction, and the criteria is the same as substance use disorder. So persistent cravings despite wanting to cut down, tolerance, needing more to get the same effect, withdrawal symptoms, loss of control over how much you consume, continued use despite negative consequences. Okay, and we have like this little image there. So 14% of adults are addicted already, and I'm sure this number is probably higher. This study was done this was actually done quite recently. So 40% of adults and 50% of youth are addicted. And of course, even if you were to go out and see the things that school kids eat and buy, and again I was guilty of this, is you go and you buy a packet of crisps, Coke and this is full sugar Coke, and it's some form of a chocolate bar, be it a Yorkie or crunchy, just because they taste good because they are manufactured to taste good, because they've been engineered by these food scientists to hit our brain and to force our brain to crave these products. Okay, so all of these things work together, and they're basically engineered to make you addicted. So they're coming for your kids. So UK adolescents, 65% of calories are from ultra-processed food, which is the highest in Europe. So we have cartoon mascots. They're designed to create brand loyalty before children can critically evaluate advertising. Examples is Ronald McDonald, Tony the Tiger, the Pringles Man. We have the KFC Colonel. We have the guy on the box of cornflakes. I even forgot what he is, but there's all of these like imagery, these mascots that make kids almost crave it. And then they'll bring out like merchandise as well, like with Happy Meals, which is just primarily just targeted towards kids because they see the toy, they're too young to understand it, the consequences and the implications of what they're eating, so they go and they pursue those items. Bright packaging, so colors and shapes chosen in neuromarketing studies to maximize appeal to children's undeveloped impulse control. Toy incentives, again, Happy Meals, like what I've mentioned, collectibles, prizes, pairing ultra-processed foods with an emotional reward, which is identical to tobacco-adjacent promotions in the 1950s. Toys, Happy Meals, and there's like Kinder Eggs, there's toys at the Happy Meals, there's prizes that you get for buying certain products, with like, let's say, cream eggs. Recently, if you find like the white cream egg, then you can win some money, but you obviously have to buy a lot of like the plain chocolate cream eggs to even find the white cream egg. And like once you've bought them, obviously you'll eat them. Like, I doubt most kids will like buy these eggs and then dump them away. They'll probably have them as well. So and again, like that emotional system that they're tapping into, not only are they tapping into us on like a biological level, but also with emotions, which is also makes it a lot harder to stop, because you almost feel like attached, or like you must get the next collectible. For any of you that have played things like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh, you see how easy it is to get addicted to collecting items. School infiltration. So UK schools pack lunches. So 65% of calories are from ultra-processed food. So we have school canteens, vending machines, sponsored food, education. So this is even something that we need to target to schools as a whole, because I knew in like my school, of course, they did try to give us like better foods, but I think maybe even if they were to reduce it in some aspects, they would sell things like a baked potato, and then you have some like toppings on it, like sweet corn and things like that. But they also sold us a lot of things like sausage rolls, like let's say Greg's, one of the biggest food companies in like the UK. Like, again, all the food that they sell is ultra processed, and this is not to call out Greg's, so it's pretty much every food that we eat, KFC, McDonald's, they're all ultra processed. They have multiple ingredients, they have multiple of these like chemicals that we've mentioned, like preservatives, emulsifiers. You've seen things where people have kept Coke or a hamburger from McDonald's on a table for 1 year and filmed it, and they see that there's not really much change, which is surprising, because you'd think if you were to leave a organic whole meat burger and left it there on like the table, within a day or two it would start to grow mold, it would start to attract flies. There's a lot that needs to be done. This video isn't going to solve it, but hopefully it's making you guys more aware. So Big Foods playbook. Big Foods, we have Big Pharma, this is Big Food. It's borrowed directly from Big Tobacco. So we have Philip Morris, which bought Kraft in like 1988. So fund your own research to muddy the waters and create scientific controversy. So these are how Big Food, or all of these big food companies, these are the strategies that they're using to continue to push out ultra processed food. So they fund their own research, because when you're funding a research, obviously you're more likely to receive better funding if the research is appealing to the company that is sponsoring you. Target the weakest, so children, lower income communities, developing countries. It's a lot more cheaper to go and buy a chocolate bar than to go buy a packet of eggs, some like flour or some sort of milk, and then to make some pancakes. It's probably even easier just to go and buy a packet of pancakes that's already been made and processed from like Tesco. Lobby for regulation, so get to write the rules yourself. So we need to be able to have a say in what the rules are for these big companies, what is allowed and what isn't allowed. Emphasize personal responsibility to deflect systemic accountability. Okay, yeah, so the system as a whole, as much as I'd like it to change, I don't know if it will change that much in the future, but you know, hopefully making videos like this can let you guys know what is going on, what is out there. Knowledge, you know, will help you to be able to, you know, just take control of what you're buying, of what you're eating, and just know what these companies are trying to do to you. Hire ex-government officials, so fund university nutrition departments. So of course we're just seeing so much now. All of these strategies of what is used to muddy the waters and to blur the lines between what is good, what is healthy, what you actually need versus what will make these companies profits. But it says healthy, so health claims on the front, so read the back more carefully. Read nutrition labels. If you buy a product, go to the back and read some nutrition labels. So if a food makes a health claim, be suspicious. Real food doesn't advertise itself. You probably won't see any health claim on the back of like chicken breast, on the back of like, you know, free range eggs. For example, protein bars, high protein, but the average ingredients is 32. Again, you can still have this as some form. If you can drop your ultra processed food diet from 60%, like the average over here, to 30%, I think you've made a win. I'm still gonna have protein bars, but again, most of my diet is not ultra processed. Most of the food I eat is whole foods, and I'll say 80% of my diet is whole foods. And again, I guess it goes back to the 80-20 rule. So the 20% would be things like protein bars, or things like where maybe once or twice a month I may go and I like have like a like cheat meal of some sort. But again, you will start to realize the more whole foods you eat, you get addicted to eating healthy and to eating clean. So going back and having foods that aren't clean, that aren't as healthy, it won't really make you feel this like as good as you feel when you're having whole foods. So you'll naturally not want to have those foods. Low fat yogurt, 0% fat, fat removed, sugar and pectin added to maintain texture, often more calories. Low fat yogurt, I still have this. You can buy the more expensive organic yogurts, but I think this is sort of, I don't know, low fat yogurt is very low calories and it's high protein, and it's, especially if you pair it with like berries, some like honey, it can be very clean and easy to eat. Of course, it's not perfect, they still have some added, you know, extras, but I think this would be better than like any of like the Muller yogurts or like the chocolate yogurts that have a lot more stuff anyway. At least this one is like a lot of the fat has been stripped. It's mainly just like protein at that point, and you can just add a little bit of sweetener, which again is a number 2 ultra processed ingredients. But again, this is why I say it's going to be pretty much impossible to eliminate this from your diet unless you go to a farm and you grow, you farm, you produce your own ingredients, and you live off the grid. Because then I could go into like the fact that we shouldn't even be like touching plastics, and plastic is everywhere. This camera is plastic, you know, this chair has elements of like plastic inside, you know, my shirt has some elements of plastic, the stethoscope has plastic, you know. We can really go into like this rabbit hole of avoiding all of these things, avoiding plastic, avoiding drinking water because there's hormones inside of our tap water, or avoiding completely ultra processed foods. But we also need to have a balance and realize that is not really possible, especially in this world that we're living on. I guess unless you live off the grid, but then you'll be living off the grid, you'll be disconnected from your friends and family. Is that something that you want to be doing? So again, take all of this, use the knowledge to have the knowledge, and then apply it to your life to some extent. I'm not saying to remove all of this again from your diet completely. Find some sort of balance. Fortified cereal, so it contains 8 vitamins. Vitamins were destroyed in the processing, they were added back industrially, which is not equivalent. Hey ho. Oat milk, plant-based rapeseed stabilizers, emulsifiers. Again, I'm still going to have a lot of these ingredients that say that they're healthy. I've already explained this, but you know why. How to spot a UPF, the kitchen rule. If you wouldn't find that ingredients in a home kitchen, it's probably UPF. Flour, eggs, butter, okay. No is things like, you know, all of these, if you can't pronounce it, or if it sounds like some like magic spell from Harry Potter, like carboxymethyl cellulose, it's probably ultra processed. Modified maize starch, it has the word modified inside. natural flavoring. I mean, flavoring isn't really natural, is it? E4, like this letters and numbers, what does that even mean? Most likely ultra processed. Onion, garlic, cumin, you know, these are just grown. Even in the case of a lot of garlic and cumin, like the ones I have, they're like already powdered, so you're gonna sprinkle it on top. You know, I think that would still count. You could argue it'd be better to buy the garlic fresh from like a farm, or like from farm produce, and then to cut it and to slice it. But who has time for that these days? You know, again, make of it what you will, do what you guys can with this knowledge, and it's not your fault. Okay, it's a system. People in food, desserts don't fail to choose well. They have no choice. So again, a lot of this is really affecting the people that are, you know, the most deprived and are from a lower socio-economic class, which is horrible. So lower incomes, ultra processed food is just a lot more accessible. It's a lot more easier for them to be able to access, which is why, of course, you know, the stats for UPF use in kids is so much higher. Less choice, so food deserts, no cooking infrastructure, marketing, aggressive targeting of lower income areas, poor health, UPF diseases disproportionately affect the poor, because the poor are more likely to consume UPF because they're less likely to receive the information, because they're the ones that are most likely being targeted, and then they're the ones that are most likely affected by by the poor health, as well as the other factors that, you know, will be more likely to affect them due to their, you know, socio-economic class. And all of this is a cycle, and it's something that, again, if we can just be aware of it, we can, you know, target, you know, lobby these companies, lobby the governments to just, you know, maybe impose stricter laws or rules or ingredients limits for these products. Tobacco science showed us that individual behavior change works poorly. Policy change works. So we really do need to affect policy as a whole. Maybe send this video to some form of politician to see if they can, you know, see what we can do going forward. If you guys have any ideas as well, let it known below, comment and share, reach out to our politicians and to see what we can do. So what do we actually do? What's the whole point of this video, apart from just giving you guys the knowledge to make the right choices for yourself that you can stick to? Read the number label before you buy. The kitchen rule. Can you find this ingredient in your home? I think that's a good rule. If you can, it's most likely Nova 1 or Nova 2 at worst. Cook from scratch where you can, even badly. Burnt eggs are still Nova Group 1. If try and cook more, try and buy whole ingredients. There's loads of food, you know, YouTube channels that break down low fat, high protein meals. They're everywhere. You can definitely find something on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. Protect children. So push back on UPF in schools. Question if food companies funding nutrition education. And for a voting campaign for policy change, advertising restrictions, UPF warning labels, school food standards. And I'm share this knowledge. You now know more than 95% of people, so use it. So after this video, you know more than 95% of people, because a lot of people do not have this information and will not read ultra processed people. Again, go and get the book. I'll try maybe find a link below to Amazon. I listened to it on Audible, which was very, very enjoyable. The author, you know, Chris Van Tulleken, wrote it himself. So I would say that's why I try to get the audio book. But if you want to read the book as well, I believe maybe there's some images and links if you have the physical copy. But again, knowledge is the first weapon. Buy the book and feed yourself better. So guys, that's the end of this long YouTube video. Is getting up to close to 40 minutes. If you enjoyed it, let me know down below, and I'll try and make more of these videos. If you want to be coached by me and you're trying to reach a fitness goal, then of course please comment coach, and we could talk and see what we can do to work together. And yeah, that's it for now. I'll see you guys in the next video.